this day, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, released in 1997, is considered to be the greatest Metroidvania and the best Castlevania game to date. There hasn't been a Castlevania game since Lords of Shadow 2 was released a decade ago in 2014, and it seems like Konami has abandoned the series entirely. But Castlevania has left a legacy that's inspired many to create exploration-based gothic RPGs, and although none of them have been able to surpass Symphony of the Night, there are some that get really damn close. That's why we wanted to bring you this list of 10 insanely good 2D Castlevania clones that you need to play. Odalis, The Dark Call, 2015. If your favorite Castlevania game was Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, then Odalis, The Dark Call is basically a clone of that. You play as Haggis, yes, the same name as the national dish of Scotland, which consists of sheep's organs, but this Haggis is a warrior hunting down a dark cult to save his son. Visually, it commits 100% to the NES aesthetic. We're talking limited color palettes, chiptune music, and a CRT filter that makes it look like it's straight from the early 90s. It looks like a linear Castlevania, but the levels are massive and packed with secrets. You play through them stage by stage, but as you unlock new abilities, you have to actually turn around and return to previous stages to unlock new pathways, secrets, and other abilities, bringing that Metroidvania exploration to a game that feels like it shouldn't have such things. The controls are also really sharp, with you having excellent jump control and fair hitboxes. The game is difficult, yes, but it feels fair, something you can overcome with skill and practice. It's a game that wanted to recreate the feeling of playing Castlevania in its glory days on the NES, and it does that perfectly. Wallachia, Reign of Dracula, 2017. Most Metroidvanias try to mimic the elements that made Symphony of the Night successful. Wallachia did the exact opposite. A throwback to the brutal linear action of the Mega Drive or Genesis, there's no backtracking, no map, and no leveling up. You just move to the right of the screen and try to survive. And the word survive is doing a lot of work in that sentence, as the game is extremely difficult, like the games it's calling back to. You play as Elsin Floria, based on a real historical figure who uses a bow instead of a whip or a melee weapon, and this bow completely changes the core gameplay, making it a side-scroller a la Contra rather than anything approaching what Castlevania does. You're firing rapid-fire arrows in 7 directions and summoning support strikers that can clear the screen. One more thing to note, the developers actually hired Robert Belgrade, the voice of Alucard. The art style gives the game a homegrown feel, and the clipped jank-adjacent animations make the game weirdly nostalgic and heartwarming, at least for us. If you're ready to join the crusade to stop Dracula and free Wallachia, then follow the sexy baritone of Robert Belgrade. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon, 2018. When Koji Igarashi, the godfather of Castlevania, left Konami to make Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, he promised an 8-bit minigame as a Kickstarter stretch goal. Everyone expected it to be a demake DLC or a minigame bonus, but instead, he dropped one of the best classic-vanias ever made. This is a direct spiritual successor to Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. You control Zangetsu, a demon hunter, but you recruit 3 other allies along the way: Miriam with her whip, Alfred with his alchemy, and Gebel, who can turn into a bat. You're able to switch between these characters instantly. Each character has different movement tech, and the branching pathways require you to master all of them, and how you master them is up to you, because it also has multiple endings depending on how you treat your allies. You can recruit them, ignore them, or, well, you can kill them to steal their powers. The chiptune soundtrack is also lauded as one of the best in the genre. It's frankly kinda insane how this just dropped out of nowhere and outdid many passion projects, which goes to show the power of a legendary creator who has decades of experience, especially when his side content is so high quality. Chasm, 2018. This game spent 6 years in development hell, and the result is a Metroidvania built on procedural generation. We know that sounds kinda bad, and we were skeptical too at the beginning, but the way they did it actually turned out really well. They didn't just let an algorithm vomit out random platforms, they handcrafted hundreds of individual puzzle rooms and combat arenas, then wrote an algorithm to stitch them together into an interconnected world map. This means the layout of the castle changes every time you start anew, but the actual rooms feel designed by a human. Each room has amazing art direction and level design, and the tile setting algorithm puts them together in a way that makes it feel cohesive and not random at all. The art and animation is perhaps the best looking on this list, especially with the smooth and soft pixel rendering style. The movements are fluid and have lots of frames, like swinging your sword, which makes it look like the character is drawing the sword, swinging it back, and then bringing it down at full force. The gameplay is completely ripped from Symphony of the Night with backdash, the sub-weapons, and the heavy weapon swings, but that just makes this game feel even better to play. Time Spinner 2018. Now, don't tell anybody, but some of our favorite Castlevanias are actually Aria of Sorrow and Order of Ecclesia for the GBA and Nintendo DS respectively, and it seems we're not the only ones, because Time Spinner is clearly inspired by Ecclesia. Instead of the whip or the sword, Time Spinner takes inspiration from Shinoa's glyphs, as the combat system in Time Spinner revolves around these magical orbs that float around you. You equip one in each hand, allowing you to mix and match elements, like a fast-fire melee attack in your left hand and a heavy iron hammer in your right. It allows you to play with different combat rhythms and allows you to create your own combos on the fly. The title of Time Spinner isn't just for show either, as the main gimmick of the game is your powerful time manipulation powers. You can freeze time instantly to dodge attacks or turn enemies into platforms. Later on, you travel between the past and the present, changing the map layout Chrono Trigger style. Burn down a vine in the past, and the path opens up in the future. The story is also unique in this genre, as most of these other games are just kill Dracula, but Time Spinner has a complex narrative about being lost in another world and destroying a space empire. Touhou Luna Nights 2019. Most people see Touhou and immediately think of bullet hells because that's what the series is known for. But as we've mentioned in previous videos, Touhou projects can span many different genres. But please put your prejudice aside, because Touhou Luna Nights is legitimately one of the tightest, most mechanically satisfying Metroidvanias I've ever played. You play as Sakuya, a maid who can manipulate time, and the developers, Team Ladybug, built the entire game around this ability. You can stop time to turn waterfalls into water platforms, you can throw knives and stop time, and they all zip to their target when you resume time, Dio Brando style. The real genius move here that we've never seen before is the graze system. In most games, you want to be as far away from the enemy projectiles as possible, but here it's the exact opposite. In order to regenerate your health and mana, you have to graze enemy projectiles, as in skim past them by mere pixels. This creates a risk and reward dance with your enemies that's just really fun. You don't need to know anything about the Touhou lore in order to enjoy this, just have fun with the graze and time manipulation gameplay, and you'll probably have a blast. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 2020. While the first game was a Kickstarter stretch goal, the sequel is a fully realized project that takes the classic formula and fleshes it out even further. What do we mean by that? Well, look no further than this roster. You get Zangetsu back, but now he's joined by an exorcist with a spear, a sniper with a musket, and a frickin' corgi piloting a steam-powered mech. Yup, in a gothic horror game set in the Dark Ages, your tank character is a dog and a robot. Hachi can hover, stomp spikes, and turn invulnerable, completely changing how you approach the game compared to your squishier, fleshier characters. Something that makes this game even crazier is that it has local co-op, and there are some insane synergies you can do with your buddy. We haven't experienced it ourselves, but we've heard that you can cheese bosses by having the sniper stand on Hachi, and the sniper can focus on long-range attacks while Hachi defends him. But don't let that anecdote fool you. This game is tough. It's tighter and more well-designed than the first, with multiple episodes that force you to replay the game with different party restrictions to get the true ending. Record of Lodos War Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth 2021. You might actually mistake this one for a sequel to Symphony of the Night. Developed by Team Ladybug, the same people behind Touhou Luna Nights, this is perhaps the most beautiful and mechanically deep and complex game on the list. Deedlit moves with the same liquid grace as Alucard, leaving the same style of spectral afterimages. The gothic environments, the enemy designs, and the sound effects all scream Castlevania, although it's set in the same universe as the 90s fantasy anime Record of Lodos War. The gameplay doesn't just borrow from Symphony of the Night, but Ikaruga as well, strangely enough. You have two spirits, wind and fire, and you have to constantly swap between them. When you have the wind spirit active, you can hover and are immune to wind attacks, but switch to fire, and you hit harder but become vulnerable to different hazards. With an aimable bow and ballistic physics arrow, insane anime-style boss fights with cool and complex animations, and monster summons with screen-clearing moves, there's just so much to this game. It's on the short side, you can finish it in 6 hours, but it's 6 hours of the best, most mechanically dense, hyper-stylized, badass-feeling Metroidvania gameplay you'll ever experience. Infernax 2022. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest had some great ideas, but playing it today is kind of a miserable experience. The cryptic riddles, the lying NPCs, the constant interruptions. I mean, the angry video game nerds rant about this one is one of his most famous, and for good reason. Infernax takes that specific open-world, town-hopping formula and actually makes it actually good. As in, there are tons of enemies on the screen, your attacks do massive damage, and you slaughter your way through the hordes. And we do mean slaughter, as enemies don't just disappear when defeated, they explode into gore and paint the map red. It's a type of hyper-violence we didn't believe NES-style games could ever achieve. The game also has a complex morality system where your choices completely change the gameplay. You can be the martyr holy knight, where the game is incredibly tough and your rewards are few, but it's worth it to maintain your honor. Or you can take bribes, demand better rewards, become violent against civilians, and become a powerful warlord. Depending on your choices, the difficulty, abilities, and even what enemies and bosses you face become completely different. This game bridges the gap between retro and modern game design beautifully. Gal Guardians Demon Purge 2023. This is a game made by Inti Creates. These are the same folks who made the Bloodstained Curse of the Moon games and the Mega Man Zero series. With Gal Guardians, they basically took Portrait of Ruin and made it way more anime. The core mechanic is instantly switching between the two main character sisters. Shinobu is a long-range shooter using a friggin' Uzi to pepper enemies from a distance and using gadgets and bombs. Maya is a heavy hitter with powerful melee attacks and magical abilities. This gives a wide variety of combat options with unique powers, and sometimes you need to switch girls to make their abilities synergize with one another. And just like in Portrait of Ruin, if one sister goes down, it's not game over. You have to physically navigate back to the spot where she's down to revive her. Insert Dark Souls reference here, you know? The game takes many brilliant ideas from many different Castlevania games, and even takes cues from Mega Man to create a game that is made from tried and tested high-quality mechanics and game design. Although for now, the Castlevania games seem to be dead, the idea of Castlevania still lives on and grows. The TV show is incredibly popular, and with how successful Bloodstained and some of these games are, we sincerely hope Konami will revive the franchise with a new game. I mean, it's not like Dracula's gonna stay dead forever, am I right? Well, until that day comes, at least we can enjoy these insanely good Castlevania clones.